What is self-care? Can we actually define that term, that whole concept? Because I feel like it's very misunderstood, and I'm not sure if we're actually, quote unquote, doing it right. Because if we really understood it, the world would be getting better, but we're actually not practicing self-care the way that we really need to. And I'm not here telling you what you need to do. What I'm saying is, like, can we take a look? Can we look under the hood to see if what we're doing is actually penetrating? Is it working? What is self-care? Is it indulging in a luxurious bath with bubbly? Is it Sunday fun day with Sunday brunches with friends? Honestly, self-care can be whatever resonates with you. Like, you get to define what that looks and feels like. Before we really truly explore self-care, I think it's really essential to address whether or not we've been using self-care as a temporary band-aid versus a genuine way of living a holistic lifestyle. And many people have a lot of mixed emotions about like self-care, because what happens is that we often feel a lot of guilt for prioritizing it within our lives. Like, this is a conversation I like having often, but it's also a conversation that isn't talked about enough, because what happens is that a lot of people think, self-care is selfish, as if it's something that takes away versus adds. But self-care really is a vital aspect of our well-being. But unfortunately, society often glorifies sleep deprivation and overworking as badges of honor. If you live in this matrix world, that is what is encouraged. But the reality is that no one benefits from this at all. No one is actually getting better. And there are so many reasons why. But first, let's dispel some myths before we go into why we all may want to stop using self-care as a band-aid. Welcome to my channel. My name is Francis. I believe that when we defy the resistance and face our fears, we can create wildly beautiful lives. So my goal with each and every video is really to inspire you to rise above the self-doubt, to conquer your fears, and embrace a life of limitless possibilities, free from judgment with full clarity. So as you're watching this video, if this message is actually resonating with you, do me a huge favor and just click the like button, show me some love, and subscribe to the channel. I greatly appreciate it. And also, while you're here, be sure to grab the 125 self-reflection questions that will change your life. It's free and it helps you to dig a little bit deeper. I heard it's pretty decent, but you let me know. All right, so let's get into the 5 myths that we're going to talk about. And there could be more. These are just ones that I thought I could highlight. And the first myth is that self-care is self-indulgent. Self-care often gets mixed up with just pampering yourself, like what I mentioned earlier, or overindulging in life's pleasures. But we're here to clear this up. While there's nothing wrong with treating yourself every now and then, like I said, true self-care is a bit more holistic. It's really about taking care of yourself in ways that make you feel good in the long run, not just for this like fleeting moment. That means not only looking after your physical health, but your mental and emotional well-being as well. It's like you're giving your whole self a boost, not just a quick fix. The second myth I hear is that self-care is selfish. I just feel like I'm being selfish when I take time for myself. Child, can we throw this? Just take this all out of your vocabulary, please. Just throw it out the window, trash it. Let's just move on from this narrative. Because really, a lot of you still believe that focusing on your self-care is selfish, as if it's indulgent to prioritize yourself. That's wild. That is so far from the truth. Self-care is far from selfish. In fact, it's a fundamental aspect of leading a healthy and balanced life. When you practice self-care, you're not just benefiting from it yourself. Because what happens is that what you're doing is you're setting the stage for being a better version of yourself for others as well. It's like, recharging your batteries, but by taking the time to nourish your body and your mind, you ensure that you're in a better position to care for the people that you love and meet whatever responsibilities that you may have within your life. So if you think of yourself as a light bulb, when you're shining bright, that light just pours out into its surroundings. It really impacts everybody in a beautiful way. So everyone gets to experience the beautiful effects of you nurturing yourself versus the one that's like cranky, grumpy, bitter, and all those other things, maybe not healthy, all of those things that might get in the way, that might impact the people around you. So it's not selfish, y'all. It is not selfish. It's really akin to the whole idea of putting your oxygen mask first before helping someone else, because you can't provide care and support to those around you if you've got nothing to give, right? It just math ain't math, and that's all I'm saying. When we have a proper self-care routine that we enjoy, and I mean, sometimes some of the self-care stuff we don't really enjoy, but we know it's necessary. But when we have something in place, it ensures that we're operating at our best, which in turn, again, benefits everyone around you. So it's not selfish, it's absolutely necessary. Okay, so the next myth is that self-care requires large blocks of time. This is a common misunderstanding because sometimes I find my self-care routine is like, wait, it's like 3 hours long, right? So I can see where this can feel like a misconception where people actually believe that, because sometimes people think like, okay, I'm going to take care of myself. I mean, I got to take a whole day off work, and then I got to go on a week-long vacation, and I got to plan, and I got to do all this. While these extended breaks obviously can be beautiful and rejuvenating to your spirit, self-care is not limited to this sort of great grand gesture. When you think about it, like self-care can take on so many different forms, including just small regular practices that easily integrate throughout your day. And so these mini self-care rituals can be just as effective, actually, if not better, in contributing to your overall well-being. Because what you're doing, if you think about it, you are a plant. And when you tend to the plant daily, you'll notice when you're not tending to the plant. One time, I'd gotten some flowers for my partner, and we noticed that the flower was slumped over, begging for some water. It was incredible to watch because the minute that we gave that plant water, it literally went from that slumping motion and just started to stand straight. And we're like, oh, holy smokes, like that worked. So you, my dear, are that plant that needs that daily tending to. So you don't need to block off huge chunks amount of time. I think that's how people have a hard time starting, because they feel like they need this robust itinerary, but you really don't. It can be as simple as taking a few minutes each day to just sit, get quiet, meditate if that feels right for you. It could be just getting quiet and taking some deep breaths, especially when like the day is just kind of like going and going and it's feeling a bit intense. And it could be as simple as just going for a walk in nature, or even just indulging in your favorite book, right? That book that you've been trying to read right before bed. The theme here is just to get some recalibration and to feel a bit more balanced and to feel good. These bite-sized moments of self-care can be incredibly powerful in reducing the stress levels in your life, elevating your mood, and also enhancing your overall quality of life. Who doesn't want to be around somebody who has a really just beautiful quality of life? You can feel it emanating from them, right? Because they're just so balanced, they're so grounded. And that could be you too as well, if you begin to prioritize this part of your life. So remember, self-care isn't solely about, taking on these grand escapades and doing this grand gesture. It's really about weaving in mindful and nourishing practices into your everyday life, making your well-being an absolute and consistent priority. Another thing I hear is like, well, I don't got time to exercise, because often some people think that self-care is all about getting physical. And sure, that's a part of it, right? But it's not just limited to your physical well-being. It also encompasses the mental and emotional aspects as well. I already mentioned meditation and breathing. I mean, it could be therapy, meeting with a coach, or even just spending time doing the things that you love are really vital components of self-care within itself. And the next thing I always hear, self-care is expensive. Some people are like, oh, I wish I could do that. And I'm just like, you can, right? If we make it a priority. There's this spa that me, my cousin, and my sister, we go to that I found because I really wanted to get into cold plunging, and I want to have sauna and steam room because I've been working out more. My muscles just been wild. And I found a spa. And so we go actually twice a month. And it's actually not that expensive. It's like $49 for like 3 hours. It's a bit of a drive for us, but we make that a priority And we just feel better after going through that 3-hour stint. Our skin looks better. We've released a lot of those toxins. And sure, like $49 might seem a lot for some folks, but I think about like if you have a smartphone, if you've got Netflix, if you go out to eat at least once a week, that is something you can commit to yourself doing. It may not be like the spa that I'm talking about, but it could be something that is, within your community that you can actually do that's going to help you elevate your mood and just feel better about yourself. So it's easy to see how self-care can be mistakenly associated with high costs, but it's not entirely true. While, of course, certain forms of self-care like luxury spa treatments or exclusive wellness retreats can really be expensive, the truth is that self-care doesn't have to drain your bank account. And some might even say our plant medicine retreats are quite expensive. Sure, I could see how it is expensive because it is a couple $1,000s. When you look at the grand scheme of things and what you get in return, and when you look at other retreat experiences, you realize, oh, this is actually a great, great deal. But again, it's a matter of perspective. It's a matter of where you are at that time. And it's also a matter of what it is that you actually need in that moment. And if we tend to have a scarcity mindset around some of these things, it is really going to be hard to see some of these things as investments. It might feel very awkward for us to do that, right? In fact, there are numerous self-care practices that are either entirely free or budget friendly. And I mentioned some already. Consider again the simplicity of going for a walk. Now you're outdoors, you're in nature, and you're being rejuvenated by the frequency of nature. So this activity just not only offers like physical benefits, and I'm 100% about like just walking. It's such an underrated activity that I wish people would just walk more. It would just make such a huge difference in their lives. When you're out with nature, it does help to reduce the stress levels. It just does. It's really a perfect example of an affordable and highly practical and effective self-care practice that you can actually do any day of the week. Again, we talked about deep breathing. We talked about mindfulness and meditation. All of those things are free. Like you don't have to pay for any of that stuff, right? And they're actually so, so powerful because really they just require nothing more than a quiet space and a willingness to engage in the process, to make it a commitment, but most importantly, to make it a priority. Journaling is yet another low-cost self-care activity. I actually had somebody in our Thrive community who was like, is there going to be a lot of journaling? I don't know if I want to be journaling. And, if journaling is not your thing, to take out a notebook and a pen, do voice notes, voice to text, do video, where it just requires you just talking. But journaling is such a beautiful tool because it really helps you to self-reflect. Just do hobbies and things that you love to do. All of those things can be very therapeutic and very cathartic. And what I mean by that is that when we're stressed, when things aren't going well in our lives, we have a lot of trapped energy in our bodies and in our auric fields. And so what these activities allow us to do is transmute that energy. It allows us to get it out because energy cannot remain stagnant. It causes illness. And so when you engage in a lot of these activities, what you're doing is transmuting a lot of that energy. You're taking it and you're alchemizing it and then letting it go. Something else that might not cost you a lot of money unless you guys decide to do an activity is socializing, right? Socializing with your peoples, your family, your friends, right? That doesn't require too much money. It just requires you to kind of do some planning. But that social connection is what helps our emotional state because often we feel like we might be dealing with a lot of things on our own. So we don't want to underestimate the connections that we can gain from these sorts of relationships because they really are invaluable for our mental and emotional well-being. Honestly, the key takeaway before I get into how to just stop using self-care as a Band-Aid, I mean, you can get a gist from just the things that I mentioned. When you begin to do this on a regular and create a ritual out of it, it really becomes a sense of embodiment. But really the reason why I talked about some of these myths first before I get into the next portion of our video, our discussion, is that I just want you to understand this stuff doesn't take a lot of time. It doesn't take a lot of money and often doesn't take a lot of coordinating or planning because you could start with whatever causes the least resistance within you, the one that's like the low-hanging fruit, which is like just putting on your sneakers and going for a walk. But none of this stuff has to strain your budget. It's really about just focusing on nurturing yourself, putting yourself first, and knowing that none of this stuff comes with a hefty price tag. Also realizing that it does not have to be complicated. It could be as simple as getting more sleep, right? Or just being kinder to yourself. All of those little things matter. And it's just really about ensuring that your mind and your body is feeling fabulous. So let's shift gears a little bit. Shifting our perspective on self-care is like changing gears in a car that's constantly caught in traffic. And what I mean by this is that many of us lead hectic lifestyles. So striving to achieve more, do more, and all of this is because of the matrix programming. And so we often neglect our well-being in the process, right? It's like go, 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 stop. You're going really fast, and then there's an abrupt halt. And because of that go, stop, go rhythm, it really leaves us drained. And sometimes we try to escape this cycle with just quick fixes like vacations or distractions, but these are only temporary respites. We end up in a repetitive loop, continuously producing and draining our energy, always craving more. The truth is, self-care should not be a short escape and not a band-aid. And I can personally relate to this because I've shared several times about my stories about burnout. There was a time I was like so dedicated to the work, and it really just took a complete toll on myself, my emotional, mental well-being, my relationships, and really my overall happiness. And I tried to remedy the situation by like seeking momentary pleasures. I did the happy hours. Hey, you want to go for happy hour? Oh, I guess I don't want to talk about this. Or I go to happy hours to talk more about it, right? Complain more. Oh, it was Sunday fun day. Let's go to brunch. The reason I mentioned that is because that's what I used to do. Go to brunch. I mean, DC, come on. So all we did was brunch it up. But I realized in the end that those were just short-term solutions. They didn't really get to the core of what was really going on with me. Real transformation occurred when I actually shifted my approach from reacting to life's demands to proactively caring for myself. And it became evident really quickly that quick fixes could not support or mend, I should say, the long-term problems that I was experiencing. So genuine self-care necessitates a shift from a reactive mindset to a proactive mindset. Because when we're reactive, we're operating from this autopilot conditioning, oblivious to the stressors until they become incredibly overwhelming. And stress, what happens is that it accumulates silently like a pressure cooker until we finally implode. Stress, honestly, is really the number one health issue for folks. It's not the overweight, it's not heart problems, it's stress. That's the underlying cause, because if you go back from maybe the overweight is the emotional eating because I'm stressed and all this stuff, right? Or my heart's working too hard to manage this stressful lifestyle. It's interesting that we're talking about this because I actually watched a show on Netflix called Wellmania. I don't know if anyone's seen it. At first I saw it and I was like, what is this about? But then I actually watched it and it's actually really good. I love feel good, kind of like funny series. And I mean, it wasn't all funny. It was like, it took me down a roller coaster, but it was really about this woman who at the age, I think she was 39, and she was really living this really hectic lifestyle. I won't give too much away if you decide to watch it, but she was living this really hectic lifestyle. And she was flying from from New York to Australia to surprise her best friend for her 40th birthday. And she's going to fly right back. When she went for the weekend and she was trying to get back home, her green card was denied because her blood pressure was too high. And America deemed that she would be more of a health burden. So she had to lower her blood pressure just to get back home. So it was interesting just to witness her go from like trying to do all these quick fixes to eventually getting to the root of it all so that she can be healthier. That's a really good series. I recommend it wholeheartedly because you can really witness this in action. So it's called Wellmania on Netflix. So like I said, stress accumulates silently. It's like that silent poison that's really eroding pieces of our lives. It sounds dramatic, but it really is what's going on. When we decide to commit to the self-care process, what we're saying is that we're being deliberate and constructing our environments in a way that recognizes when stress levels are increasing, and we've constructed an environment that can actually manage that level of stress. It's like, why wait until we reach a breaking point in our lives when we can actually just equip ourselves to be able to detect and address issues preemptively, much like, Spider-Man senses danger. So your spidey senses, it senses this imbalance. You just often ignore it, right? You ignore the red flag. You ignore the yellow flag, the orange flag, and then the red flag comes and it's like, oh snap, I gotta do something, right? Self-care isn't just a temporary habit. It is not a band-aid. It's a lifestyle and an embodiment of self-love and empowerment, I might add. Because for you to actually follow through with this embodiment, it means that you feel empowered to place necessary boundaries to preserve and nurture your well-being. And sometimes that takes, you standing up to folks and saying, listen, we ain't doing that. Okay, don't call me, don't come looking for me. Okay, I was busy with myself. All right. And we know stress is a natural part of life, but it really becomes problematic when it consumes us in its entirety. So to prevent this, we really need to take charge of our well-being before it just deteriorates and jeopardizes our lives and our relationships and, of course, our health. The concept of morning routines comes up a lot when we talk about self-care, and a lot of people are like, I need to create a morning routine. And I really like to call it just like a self-loving ritual, because it really does set the tone for the rest of the day. And if you have this self-loving ritual in the morning, it really can save your life, I believe, because what you're essentially saying is that I'm going to take this moment before I do anything else, before I give myself or pieces of myself to the rest of the world, to love on me. That's all that morning ritual or whatever, that's all that it's saying. I'm putting myself first. Once we internalize that self-care is a lifestyle, right? A lifelong commitment, we shift from reacting to life's demands and pressures to skillfully managing them. It becomes an integral part of our daily lives, and it's ingrained in our choices because we're choosing to do or not do it. It's ingrained in our words and how we speak to ourselves and other people. It's ingrained in our relationships and our connections to our inner selves. So we become adept at recognizing stress and addressing it before it literally derails our lives. So when you're in the end of this video, I really hope this video has encouraged you to look at self-care a bit differently, and also just to take better care of yourself, especially if it's something that is inconsistent or non-existent in your life. Because again, the diseases in our bodies manifest in our lives because of the fact that we're under such insurmountable pressure and stress that we're having a hard time really nurturing ourselves. But really need to nurture ourselves by any means necessary, because that's a way to sort of bring more balance and wholeness into our lives. And also it allows us to combat some of those potential diseases that might manifest from our lack of care of ourselves. So I want you to make this unwavering promise to yourself. I want you to commit to developing some sort of self-care ritual, because you are deserving and worthy of this intention and this investment. Nothing is more important or more crucial than your holistic health. Not even your loved ones, not your kids, not your spouse, because without your well-being, you can't be there for them. So I want you to think of like this journey of self-care, not as some sort of luxury or something it's nice to have, but as a fundamental necessity to be your absolute best. So please take a moment to share in the comments below, in what ways are you going to take care of yourself? What are you going to do first? And maybe what has sort of prevented you from making yourself a priority. Your experiences and insights are so valuable to the community, so leave a comment below. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, like and subscribe to the channel. In the meantime, join my Thrive newsletter so that we can continue conversations like this offline. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the other side of wholeness. Take care.